From Learfield IMG College, this is Plant the Flag, the official UMass Athletics podcast. Now, here is your host, the voice of UMass Athletics, Jay Burnham.
Coming at you from the podcast emporium here inside the Mullen Center, I'm Jay Burnham alongside UMass head football coach Joe Harasymiak joining us now. Coach, I know you're busy. Thanks so much for stopping by. How you doing?
Appreciate it. Good to be over here.
21 new signees.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, the schedule that's coming up for you. But just, I guess, in your first year here, obviously things didn't go the way you wanted to. Did you spend any time, I guess, reflecting on what was a tough season?
Yeah, a lot of reflection. I think not only on a week-to-week basis, but ultimately, you go through something like that. And now it's all about positioning ourselves to take the next step forward. I think a lot's going to go into that, the rebuild, the roster flip, and making sure we get exactly what we need. So it's going to be busy. It already is busy, and then certainly January will be chaotic.
Does that start with individual conversations with players, with coaches, staff members?
Yeah, so, the way we did it was after the Bowling Green game, we kind of had Thanksgiving break. My only focus there was the Wednesday signing day, making sure, we stayed in contact as much as we can. Because, again, normally you're allowed out to see those guys, and we couldn't do that because December has now changed to a dead period. So that was crazy, FaceTimes and staying in contact all the way up. I was on a FaceTime with one individual at a little after midnight on what was Wednesday morning, just making sure, because you never know, the old school way of the fax machine.
They still do the faxes?
No, everything's digital, but it's kind of the same thing. Instead of staring at the fax machine, you're staring at your phone to make sure the DocuSign comes through.
Yeah.
So that was the initial push. Then after Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday were our player postseason meetings. And now getting into this week, our guys that are still currently on the roster will leave starting Wednesday. So we'll have a final team meeting. A lot of that will be myself and Coach Green, winter workout, because this break, I've never experienced something like this with this break. So we got to stay in shape. And then obviously January will be visit time.
Well, obviously just not unique to you. It's the schedule that is now out there for college football. Before we get further into that, though, I just wanted to get your thoughts as we record this. The college football playoff announcements came out. Not one, but two Group of 5 teams making the college football playoff. What were your thoughts in terms of being a Group of 5 team, seeing that unfold?
Yeah, there's two sides to everything. Certainly really excited for that because that's the position that we're in. Certainly, I think you need to put yourself in a position to be that 11-1, 12-1 to even be in that conversation as a Group of 5. But I remember in July when I got to my first MAC head coaches meeting, a lot of those rules and those tiebreakers are made up so that if we were ever in position to be an 11-1, a 12-0 team, 12-1, that you would be in the conversation from a ranking standpoint. So I think it's great, the parity, that's going on. Certainly the flip side of that is some of the teams that are left out are shocking.
Yeah.
The part with the ACC champion doesn't get in is a little tough because you did win your conference, but I guess I do understand it from a rankings and a computer standpoint, but that's a tough one.
They keep tweaking these things, so I'm sure the folks that aren't happy have a lot more leverage than those that are happy, right?
Started with 4, and then it was 12, and we'll probably I was in the FCS for 8 years at Maine, and we made it a bunch of times, and I don't know. I guess I never really had an issue with that one. I don't know if we'll ever get to that, but the numbers will keep going up probably. Look at basketball now, what they do, and I don't know if there's ever going to be anything that's exactly right, but hopefully we get to that point.
I think it's interesting, though, UMass now being in the MAC and you being parts of these conversations with the conference that, hey, these are things they're talking about. This is the goal for our conference champion to eventually be in that conversation.
Absolutely, and that's what excited me about that July meeting. I've never been to one. I've been to the CAA head coach meetings, but that's where we started. It was all about that, about the ranking system and what gave a 12-0, 11-1 MAC team a good opportunity to put themselves in the conversation. So, but certainly, James Madison, Tulane, it's exciting. And now let's see what they can do. They got to go on the road and
get beat somebody.
Two hard opponents. JMU going across the country playing at Oregon. So that should be fun. But yeah, it's exciting because the stability of the league provides us that now.
Yeah.
We got to put ourselves in that position.
21 new signees. This is the freshman class. The portal will open in early January. We'll talk about that in a second. But I guess you had talked at the end of the season about finding players that are passionate about football, that want to be here. You bring in 21. Why that number? And I guess, what do you think of this class that you brought in so far?
Yeah, I mean, we've worked really hard on that. I think to be an 0-12 team and to stick and get that many guys is great for us. And I think what they all have is a connection to this place. They want the challenge of changing it. We signed 21 early signees, which in the class of 22, 23, 24, that was 21 total. So now we have 21 in just one class. And that's all philosophy in recruiting. That's what you want to do. But I think that this place needs to be built from the ground up. I think we got into a rhythm there of transfer portal, and it didn't work. So the research that I've done and the data that I've done, I think we need to home grow the place from the ground up. For instance, this year when we took over, we had 8 sophomores in the roster, which is insanity.
Yeah.
Just from that, I think when you get into a season where you have 20-plus season-ending injuries, your depth gets challenged. And I think we just need to keep building it up. And then certainly by going that route, retention will be more important than ever. Let's get to that problem first of having to retain, but I think we'll be in a position from a rev share NIL standpoint to be able to compete with those battles.
Well, the retain, I mean, regardless of who you are, where you are, every player needs to be retained by every coach, right? I mean, that's the reality that you're in.
Correct.
And you've got some freshmen that did play last year.
Yeah, we had some really good ones. And, I got hired on signing day last year. They had signed 3 players prior. I think I got here at like 4 or 5 o'clock. There was 3 players signed. We just need to keep getting into that. But the point that you make is every season is an individual season now.
Right.
What is the best team for 26 that we can put together? If you worry about 27, 28, 29, that's just not how it is anymore. I look at some of the teams here, what men's basketball does with their turnover rate and that with the transfer portal there in that sport, you never know.
Yeah.
And I think if we get more better people in the building and build a culture and develop them, it'll be harder for them to leave. There's certainly a threshold that every group of 5 financially can only hit. But we're in a position now with the stability in the league to compete with that and the top level group of 5. So I feel really good about moving forward in terms of what we'll be able to do for retention.
I was going to say, because those numbers are important. I guess it's not just how much money you have, but how you spend it, right? And how do you, assess talent. When you look at the rest of the MAC, and unfortunately this past season there were losses that felt like there was a wide gap in terms of where we were and the opponents we were playing. What do the resources look like in terms of that disparity from the top of the league to what you guys are?
Yeah, I think we're in position to be at the top of the league. It didn't come to fruition this time around. I think certainly with the timetable that we were all put in getting here, with how many spots that we had to take. We had 46 – my second day on the job, we had 46 roster spots open. 23 to graduation, and 23 ended up going in that winter portal last year. And then overall between the spring portal, which there is not anymore.
Okay, that's gone.
That's gone. Yeah. There were 67 roster spots. So I think anytime you have that gigantic of a number, you're certainly going to miss. We did do that. We take ownership for that on some of the guys that we took. But now moving forward, building it from the ground up, that number will get less, which I think is what you want. And I think the research that we've done too, the last 4 MAC champions, I believe, have averaged 19 high school takes and about 8 or 9 transfer portal takes in their championship season. So we need to get back to that. And I think that's the one thing that the league provides. I think when you're in a league, you have to high school recruit. Mm-hmm. You got to build it up. There's stability there. So looking forward to that. And certainly, recruiting never stops. So we just got to keep working it.
I think it's interesting because you go into the spring portal, which now no longer exists, correct?
No,
so
not there.
There's teams that are saying, hey, let's not show who we've got in spring game, right? Because we're going to lose this guy into the portal. So I guess how does that singular portal, which starts on, early January 3rd?
Second,
So January 2nd. How does that change your approach and just, how things flow here in general?
Yeah, I think you got to get your roster to be what it needs to be moving into that. And then certainly right now what we're doing is the next 2 weeks for us before we head out Christmas break-wise for a little bit of time is we're doing our own self-scout, right? It wasn't just the players.
Right.
Coaches have to be better. I think some of our coaches didn't get a chance to bring in people that they wanted or coach people that ultimately they chose. But we need to identify what the needs are and then attack the portal on what that is. And who are we going to be? So offensively, we're going to be a zone team, gap scheme team. I think the one thing on offense we need is a trend in college football. We need multiple dual threat quarterbacks. That is just the way the college football game goes. I mean, I watched the Bears-Packers yesterday. Caleb Williams is running everywhere, right? People that can extend the second play. So I think that's a huge identifier on what we need there. And then certainly as you go through it, it's how do we fit the portal takes to exactly what we need. And I think last year, building a staff, the amount of numbers that we had going on, some of that gets lost a little bit. I had some staff members that were with me all the way until December 21st, 22nd that are no longer here that were helping me through that process. I think one of the first staff meetings I had, Coach Reed was still there, was one of the only guys that was still here. So we worked through all that. Now I think we're settled. I think we have structure. Plus, I've mentioned this in press conferences before, rev share didn't start till July 1st. So the winter portal last year and the spring portal, you can promise whatever you want. But it's like anything. Me and you go to buy something and someone's promising me something, but someone else gives me it's right there.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take that. So now, we are financially in a position making a lot of moves to have a nice pool to move into this winter portal.
That's a guarantee that you can say, hey, this is before it felt like kind of a maybe it could happen.
It's a future thing. Remember, I mean, it was July 1st, and you could say, I could promise you this, promise you that, but the schools we're recruiting against already had that. They had a
show me the money
collective,
right?
They had prior things there, and certainly, I think the one thing we need to move forward with is obviously getting that in position to where now you can show people on a visit what you have, what you don't have, and but ultimately it still comes down to fit. I really do, and I think the situation that we're in, building it from the ground up, we need guys that want this challenge. Yeah. It's going to be a challenge, and but I'm excited about that. That's kind of what keeps me going, because once we have everything in place to make this place what it wants to be. And, I was back in the CAA when we were winning national championships here, right? When everything was relative from a league standpoint, recruiting, there was no transfer portal at the time, there was no NIL, but when it's all relative, this place was winning a lot of games and playing in the postseason. So if I take that and I look at this now, there's a lot of things that are relative with the MAC. We're financially in a position to go compete. Now we just need the time to go do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think about some of the players that were on the other MAC teams, and it's like, it's not like they're getting guys who started at Auburn. No. I mean, they're players that they found in the portal, a lot of them that became starting quarterbacks or running backs from D2 or lower level conferences. And I guess it's just, to your point, finding out how you fit those guys into the schemes.
Yeah, and I think the four things that I'm looking at are you obsessed? Are you hungry for the challenge? Are you smart? Right? And then ultimately, how do you fit? If we can focus on those four things, I think we're going to be in a great position. And I think what we have is a lot of young talent right now. Especially, I'll give you an example. O-line, we graduated, I think, 5 to 6 guys. There's a lot of the Brock Taylors, the Jackson Kings, who's an older guy, Peyton Millers, that got a lot of time this year, struggled at times, but that's going to be the foundation. And now we got to go out and pick and place. The easiest way I kind of describe it is the high school recruiting needs to be your draft. That is your NFL draft. If you want to look at it as baseball, that's your farm system. You grow and you develop, and you take guys. You don't have to pay them a ton early on, right? And you see how they develop. The transfer portal, it needs to be free agency. And my view on last year, we had to take too many free agents. Yeah. There was too many things going on, whereas free agency, you want to get that ultimate player that can plug in and has production. So obsessed, production, hungry, smart, all those things. Can we get that right? And now it's certainly on us to do that.
I guess feel free to this might be a tough question, but are there guys that you can count on that you're saying they will be here this next year that we saw this past year?
Yeah, I feel confident. I think the one thing that it's not evident to people that watch the games right now that are not in the building, a lot of guys want to stay. But ultimately, we have to make a decision whether they're good enough or whether they're part of what we want to do. That's the hardest part because everybody's human, right? That's kind of the crappy part of this. But we are in a position where I believe that we're building stuff inside the walls that hasn't translated to inside the paint, as I would say, to the 53 and a third, but I feel good about where we are standing today talking to you. Now, the hard part is someone could be home on their couch and give me a call, and that's it.
Yeah.
So we believe in face-to-face interaction, conversation, which I think is something that is in society in general just as a problem now. I can send you a text and quit. I can send you a video, whatever you
WhatsApp,
want. Sit down, have a conversation, and go from there. So I think that also teaches a young man how to develop in his own life. So I feel very confident with what we've done the last week. That can change. I will certainly be surprised over this break on what goes on, but I think we're in a good position.
I guess it would also go for coaching staff as well. And there's folks that see, okay, you went 0-12. Where's my pound of flesh? Who do we sacrifice? At least as we record this, that hasn't happened yet for your staff. So I guess how do you feel about them, and where are you in that development in terms of heading into next season with your coaching staff?
Yeah, I feel really good. That was the one thing that I did have complete control over. Now it took me a little bit longer to identify and get the right guys, but there's a lot of winners on staff. There's a lot of guys that have coached a lot of great players, and you can only do so much in a certain amount of time. So I'm confident in that group. Haven't had staff postseason meetings yet, but we will get into that more next week. So, but we identified those, particularly me, as guys that I know have the right system or about the right things. I just don't know if they had the right tools yet in terms of what we needed to do, which is why this week is so big to evaluate the systems that we brought in, exactly how we will fit that into next year. I think something, defensively that we had to play a lot more zone than I've ever played in my career.
Why is that?
Which is, I think, just matchups and ability-wise to be able to do that. So injuries as well play a point in that, but it makes you change constantly. I think we were constantly trying to find our groove on each side of the ball. But, you see what we did special teams-wise with Joe Castellito and Keegan Andrews and Derek Morris. So there's bright spots everywhere, but I think the one thing is, guys got to get a fair opportunity to coach who they want to coach.
Does it feel, I don't know, when you're looking at this, you're saying, I got to put this puzzle together. For years, predating your time here, struggling to stop the run has been an issue here at UMass. Finding a quarterback that's explosive, an offensive line that's stable. How do you prioritize, or what is the priority heading into the transfer portal when you see kind of the issues that have mounted up? Yeah,
I definitely think we're going to build it up front first. O-line and D-line will be the absolute priority. Quarterback obviously is something that we got to get right. And then ultimately you got to place people around that quarterback that can do something. I think the biggest thing I'll look for at the skill position on offense is when the ball's in your hand, what do you do? Right? Not just production, not just numbers, but when the ball's in your hand, what can you do? Can you make guys miss?
Right.
But certainly we will start up front. If we can win up front, we'll put ourselves in a lot of games. And that's where a lot of our money, right, and all those things that go in, our investment is going to be. That's where we need to go. But I look at, the guys that'll be in charge of that, Kurt Anderson and Naeem Wortman, all these guys, that's going to be something that's critical. And again, I think we've all taken ownership. It's not just the players. Coaches got to be better. I own that. We own that. But ultimately, I also know that's on me to retain coaches and keep them here. That's going to be on me. I get that. But I think I can identify who can coach and who can't.
Is it a matter of, because what I'm hearing is you're saying, look, we've got the system that we want to run, and we got to go out and get the players that fit it. Is there ever a thought of saying, well, maybe we have to change our system if we can't get those types of guys here, if they're just not available?
There's absolutely, and that's kind of what we struggle with a little bit during the season, trying to figure out what our players can handle. But that's what this next 2 weeks is for with this self-scout. So we watch cut-ups, every situational football, first and second down, third down, red zone, 4-minute, 2-minute. What did we ask them to do? Can we do it? How can we tweak things? So that's what we're going through right now. And then identifying, okay, what do we need to do? What can we do? But the hard part for me, the hardest part is I know the systems work on each side. There's proven that the defensive and offensive system has worked at different places with different players. So now it's about why didn't it work this year, right? Open up your chest, see why that didn't happen, and then go to it with, okay, this is what we're going to tweak. Like I said, offensively, are we more of a zone team? Are we more of a gap scheme team? Certainly, I mentioned the quarterback having to be a dual threat. I mean, look at the MAC Offensive Player of the Year. He threw 7 passes against us.
Yeah.
Right? 7. So, how do we become who we need to become in terms of offense, defense, and special teams? And I think that's an ongoing process. It's fluid. But also, when you rebuild something, I think the first thing is the buy-in. There's got to be guys that are willing to take the challenge, and I think that's ultimately what you got to look for.
I think you said something interesting there, because from the outside, you're saying, "Oh man, you lost these games," and it looked like nothing was cohesive from afar. But you said, "Look, there's guys that want to be here, that still are part of this team." So, I guess internally, you're getting some of that buy-in already.
Yeah, no, we are. I think changing the program inside the walls is something that I didn't underestimate. I thought there would be probably more retention of the guys that were here from a recruiting standpoint that could step up and play right away, and there just wasn't. But I think inside the walls with what Coach Green has done, it was funny when Andy Isabella was here helping us out. He said the biggest change they had, I think it was his junior year, they started 0-6 and they won the last 4. And something he talked about was going into the next season, they felt really good, and they lost their strength coach. I forget his name. I believe he's at Arizona State now. And Andy being the type of guy that anybody would want to coach from a culture standpoint to how he works out. I remember there's a story that Ryan shared with me. He was in with Whip, and Andy's shoveling the field in January to go work out, right? So, but he said,
thankfully, we don't have to do that anymore.
No, losing that strength coach was something that, from a culture standpoint, was massive, from what he told me. So that's what I also think about. We change everything right now. We're starting over again, not only from a player standpoint, from a staff and an organization standpoint. So, again, I know that that ownership will be on me to stick with these guys and push it forward. But I see what's happening inside the wall. I see what we're teaching. It hasn't come to fruition yet, but we need to know how to play the game. We got to respect the game. I think a lot of us thought it was going to be too easy. It's not easy. You're in a league now. It's competitive. Like there's common matchups. And we got to keep putting ourselves in those positions and move forward.
I think, and I look at some of the scores in my head, and it's just like, okay, this one felt like the game got out of control here and here. But there were moments, because I guess your defense was out there for so much because the offense struggled, and then you recognize that, and you're saying, look, we have to go for it on 4th and 2 from the 35-yard line. We have to keep the offense out on the field. So I guess, how do you take that into account when you're assessing the defensive performance, where it's saying, hey, we actually had some pretty good plays and pretty good stops, but ultimately just so hard to have them run out there time and time again? Yeah,
I think the thing I look at is just, I take out just take out the situation and look at the play calling and how we were able to match up scheme wise, and I think the critical part of the season for me, that Missouri game, 21-6 at half.
Yeah.
One of the games where we had the most sacks that we've had. Then they backed that up with a really good performance against the MAC champion in Western Michigan. And then we struggled, I believe, at Kent State, obviously mightily. And then we come back and we play a game that we lost in the last 59 seconds against Buffalo, right? So that 4-game stretch there. So you look at that, and, I've been around struggling offenses, and I'm a defensive guy. I've been around struggling offenses. I believe my first 2 years at Rutgers, we had the 125th and 128th offense.
So not good.
And we were not good. And we were still 36th, and then ultimately in 23, we were ranked 16th in the country. So, yes, there's, from both sides of it, there's things that go on, but I think that's what this next 2 weeks about, is for the staff and myself to analyze and get into. Is it wasn't just the players, it wasn't just the other side of the ball not helping us out. What can we do better?
Right.
I think a lot of our struggles, obviously on defense, were tackling, that kind of aspect, and we didn't break any tackles offensively. That'll all be diagnosed here in the next 2 weeks, and moving forward, give us a pretty good idea.
I don't want to I don't want to live in the past, but you mentioned that stretch of games because it was competitive against Western Michigan at home, who then ended up, as you mentioned, to be the MAC champion. I could remember the voice in your halftime interview going into halftime at Missouri about how things were kind of positively moving forward. The tough loss against Bryant, last seconds, tough loss against Buffalo. Do you think things would have been different had you been able to kind of pull two of those games out?
Yeah, I think about that all the time, and my answer to that as the head coach is no, because I probably need to do the same job I'm doing now. Yeah. Nothing would if we went 2-10 and won those last
2-10 is unacceptable, just as 0-12 is unacceptable.
Yeah, so I don't think it changes a lot of things that I would do in terms of meeting with the staff, getting with them, meeting with the players. It's still unacceptable, right? We should be in a position like we have to beat FCS teams. I was an FCS guy for 8 years. Went on the road at Western Kentucky, beat that. Like I completely understand that. We're in a financial situation and all those things that are going into college football. We have to win those games. There's no excuse for that. And then certainly when you get into league play, you have to win games late. Yeah. That's what league play comes down to. My time in the Big Ten, you have to win in the fourth quarter and put yourself there. We're learning all that. We're doing that. But no, I don't believe – maybe it would make me feel better. It would make other people feel better. But 2-10 still. Now, the things you would accomplish there, I mean, if you beat Buffalo at home, it's your first home FBS win since 21. First FBS win overall since 23. So, yeah, great building on that. But we're not here to do that. I didn't get hired to do this. I didn't change my career trajectory from going from the Power Four to take this and just nuke my career. Like, just being real. I came here to win. I love it here. My family loves it here. This place is important to us. And all those things go into it. That's why we need to get it done, because I appreciate this place. I mean, there's people here that want to win. Yep. And we're investing for the first time as of July 1st in that. And I think with that, you got to get it right to start. And I don't think starting at the top of the building with the transfer portal is the right way. You got to build it from the ground up. Any great house, any great organization, company, they have a great foundation. Because in storms, when you get them, the house will still stand. And that's what we need right now. Our house fell last year.
You talk about needing to win close games, which it feels like is the motto in the MAC, right? It comes down to special teams a lot of times. And that was the positive side of things, something we hadn't seen here in a long time. And getting Coach Castellito in certainly was a big part of that. Keegan Andrews winning the punting game, being able to flip the field, and Derek Morris hitting multiple 50-yard field goals. He set the record twice in terms of longest field goal for UMass this season alone. So that feels like there's something to build upon and say, look, we can win in this aspect of the game. Now we just need to figure out the other aspects.
Yeah, I mean, someone like Keegan Andrews, too, what he did for our team should have been even that much better. From how many punts he had inside the 20 and the 10. Yep. Not just his average, but that, again, we talk about flipping the field. That's one of the goals of special teams. I mean, if you force a backed up punt, especially inside the 4, that usually equals points of some margin. Yep. And we just didn't take advantage of that. We let them get out of those backed up situations and punt the ball and flip the field themselves. So he should have even been more important. And then Derek obviously shows you that he's got a leg that can make you feel comfortable in in late weather games. That can be something that's great for us, And I think seeing that for the first time, and then ultimately, I mean, I think we ran 4 trick plays on special teams, and all 4 had penalties. So we had the middle dribble against Kent State, the fake punt against Akron. We had a legal shift fake punt against Buffalo, and then what's the last one I'm thinking about? There's one more.
I'm remembering them because each one I'm like, and they got the ball, and then
we tried to that first. I don't know if people know this, but that first kickoff against Ohio was on purpose. That's called snipe. We drilled that guy right in the face. Yeah. That's on purpose. You know what I mean? So we're hoping that ball takes a ricochet in a different direction, but that's the kind of growth I'm talking about. When we talk about these things, we just have to be better disciplined to go execute them.
Okay, what's the play of the year in your mind? Oof. If you think back, say
play of the year.
Is there 1 or 2 plays that really stand out?
Play of the year.
I mean, drilling a guy in the face with a kickoff is a pretty good one.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about Derek Moore. A 55-yard field goal you want as your play of the game. I thought one of hopefully it could have been 2 plays that pop into my mind that should have led to victory was the Kez touchdown against Buffalo or the Max Dowling. explosive play touchdown. I mean, usually when those plays happen, good things happen. And that's the only chart. You know, I told you I keep track of explosive plays, turnover margin, and penalties.
You're not kidding. There's a chart in the
chart in the team room
that has every game.
There's a lot of red X's.
Yeah, which means you did not win that exchange. Win that. Yeah.
Black dash is even. That game, we finished with 3 green check marks. So normally in my time, that's supposed to be a win. But it goes down. That game came down to situational football, not being able to close out 4 minute and not being able to get a stop. We had a penalty there at the end. So we got to keep growing in those areas. But those 2 plays just stick in my mind because they should have led to an FBS victory. They should have. They did not. We got to take ownership for that.
I was thinking about that Brandon Hood run of 90-plus yards.
100%.
Which is
it's something
untouched.
From the Buffalo game more than likely. Hopefully next year I'll have a better answer for you.
When you look at those things, and I've heard this from folks around UMass before, but it's learning how to win, right? And figuring out, like even in that Buffalo game, you take what seemed like maybe an innocuous penalty in the final minute and ends up coming back and biting you in the backside. Is that something you guys talk about in terms of we not only have to have the lead, but we have to learn how to win these games?
Yeah, I could. Again, there hasn't been a lot of winning here at all in the past. So when you take over something, that's why I believe my philosophy is to dig it completely out and get the people in here that you want. But learning how to win is playing great situational football, learning that no matter what and I'll give you 2 examples, whether it's the Buffalo game coming down to the last play or the Bryant game, or a game like Kent State where they return the opening kickoff, that's play 1 of 177. We just didn't respond well to any type of adversity. And adversity, you've heard me say it before, it reveals who you are. So we got to keep teaching that through our weight room, through the off-season stuff. We're going to do a lot of stuff with leadership programs and groups this year in terms of myself and Coach Green. We're going to split the team up into teams in the winter, and they're going to compete in everything. We're going to have leaders of each team, whether that's in your academic life, your social life, in the building, weight room, winter workouts. Like we have to teach that better. That is one thing that more than likely I took for granted, that I thought just changing a culture and doing that immediately with all the things that we were going to present to them was going to be good enough, and it wasn't. So we're gonna dive even deeper into that, and we're gonna teach the whole entire team how to do that. Yeah. And that's what comes down to playing in a league now, right? Being in that fourth quarter, staying in the moment. Don't live in the past. Don't think about the future. Stay present.
Is that something, when I think about your first year as an FBS head coach, you're saying I maybe didn't realize I had to teach. Like, I'm a history teacher and I'm talking about continents, but I got to tell them what a continent is first before we can teach them about continents. I mean, is that something that you learned in terms of, okay, wait, maybe I have to rewind even further in my teaching to deliver that message?
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. You know, just some of the simple situational football that, again, goes into teaching. Like, we do football 1-on-1 in the offseason. We did that. We talk about the field dimensions, the hash to the numbers, all these things. And why are they important? Because you got to get lined up, right? And that's something when you just think about that, like wide receiver alignments all year were jacked up, right? Remembering that stuff. So, yes, everything's got to go into it. And I think now we'll be in a position to go ahead and do that. But ultimately, I think you got to want to do that.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to identify here by the high school recruiting, the portal, and taking guys that want that challenge. You got to respect the game. And I think that's at times we didn't do that. Like, we say we work hard, we say we're tough, we're not. And that's my job, right? That's my ownership to get that done. So we're going to change a lot of things in practices, and we're going to build this identity because, you know, I look back at it, that's what we had at all the places that I've been. You know, that the most glaring thing to me was at times the lack of competitive people. Like, when you're at a Big Ten place, I mean, kids will rip your face off. I mean, this is their life, you know? Even the main our 2018 main team, man, I know people want me to stop talking about that, but I got to go back to a relative thing in a league where, you know, I was the head coach, and that team was just so competitive no matter what happened.
So an opening kickoff that goes for a touchdown wouldn't
we were down 21-0 in
that.
Western Kentucky in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Ended up winning the game. So it's just you have to teach that. We got to show them why it's important. But I think a lot of things probably that went on, okay, new staff, new players, okay, we're just going to go out there and win. We weren't teaching that. We weren't coaching that, but I think that was a little bit of the expectation. And ultimately, when we got into it, it was too late.
When you're looking at the portal, I know you said you love to meet guys face-to-face and actually kind of get in there. I mean, how do you identify those characteristics when you're talking with somebody?
So I think the hardest thing is everybody asks me is, hey, do you take power forward drop downs? Do you take group of 5 lateral moves? Or do you take 1AA Division II?
Those seem like the 3 avenues, right?
Right. So certainly for me, I think one situation is a lot of our guys last year that in necessity takes, they didn't have production. They hadn't played the game before. So that's the first area we got to look. Now with power forward drop downs, there might not be a lot of production because that's why they're dropping down.
Haven't played.
More than likely, right? So how do we identify their practice tape that we'll get from them? Speaking to coaches, I think is a huge thing in our profession. We're all connected. But that's going to be a challenge there with the power 4 drop downs. You know, any group of 5 movement, level to level, usually when you go in at this level, it's to go up. Normally, that's what you believe you are. Some guys make the decision for the right reason at a group of 5 level to drop down and get a 1AA scholarship and play. So that'll be the challenge there, like how much production they have, how much did they play. And then certainly the guys usually moving up from an FCS level do have production. They were all league players. They're highly touted. They're highly sought out. And, you know, we've made hits on all 3 in my time over the transfer portal era. But I think you just got to dive in. And now we have the numbers and the staff to really do that.
Yeah.
Plus the backing of the investment and the financial piece. It's not all about that, but I think we'll be selecting from a different pool this time than we were last time. So
because of the commitment that's already been made.
Because of the commitment and the investment that has come as of July 1st.
You know, I think because I think that's fascinating. And I think when you look at down versus up or lateral, there's always examples of hit and miss, right?
Correct.
And I just think about it at UMass. I think about a guy like Marcus White. And even before that, Jalen Mackey, who was a middle linebacker, both from Dartmouth.
Yep.
And they won at Dartmouth, and they had success here at UMass. I think there's a lot of examples of guys that have that drive that want to technically go up and have had success on the field.
Yeah, I know how hungry a lot of the 1AA guys, because I think a lot of times with the FCS guys, you kind of feel like you were overlooked in high school recruiting.
100%.
Like, hey, I'm better than that guy. Now, listen, we all know comparisons steal your joy.
That's what us radio broadcasters do too. We're like, look at that guy. How'd he get in the big leagues, huh? I'm way better than him.
So it's like, it's very, but you're right. Like you have to go into the portal and even in recruiting in general, you're not going to hit 1,000%. It's never, I mean, look at baseball guys that go to the Hall of Fame, usually over 300 somewhere, right? So you're never going to hit at 1,000, but you need to hit with culture first and character. And then ultimately that usually develops into what you want. So yeah, it's a tricky world from the power 4 drop down to the group of 5 lateral move to the FCS moving up. But you need to just identify, spend a lot of time, and how can you do that with the relationships you have through the resources that you can get information on.
And people, I think one thing they don't fully see is academically, where are they? Attitude-wise, health-wise, a lot of times guys are hurt and you just you have to wait on them.
Those 2 things are critical. I mean, every school is different from what your school transfers in credit-wise, especially your progress toward degree. Like if a lot of the guys that struggle, these 1-year guys that are going in, like you gotta pick a school that can get the most amount of credits in there. They can't keep you on progress toward degree to graduate. You know, usually the 2-year guys, the 3-year guys, the 4-year guys are a little bit easier because you're so young, you're so much younger in your progress toward your degree. And then the injury thing is scary.
Yeah.
You know, like every single O lineman or D lineman that plays college football probably has a torn labrum. That's just the way it goes, or it's on its way to doing that. Now, whether their last school had the resources to get an MRI, they haven't gotten it yet. So that's why we need to do a great job on our visits from a medical standpoint of putting them through things and getting their medical records and protecting yourself. I mean, I think that's something that is going to be huge moving forward here in the month of January, which we're setting up now. How do we do the best job we can medically to screen them, to check them, and ultimately, because that's an issue. So those 2 things are highly critical to getting this right.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a concoction that you have to put together. I think it sounds like you're better positioned now than you were last year.
No,
moment.
I'm confident in that for sure. I'm not really drinking out of a fire hose right now with, again, like I said, I think on the second day of my job, I believe there were 5 people here. And out of those 5, I think there's 1 left, and Coach Matt Lehman. So now we're structured. We have a GM in place. We have a director of high school recruiting. We have recruiting people. We have chief of staff. We have DFO. We have coaches. We have GAs. We have all these people that are here now, and we're getting ahead on the process. And that's the biggest thing. Transfer portal isn't open for a little bit. It's going on. Like,
so, by the way,
it's going on.
When we say this now in December, when someone says I'm in the portal, they're not really in the portal yet because it doesn't open until January 2nd.
It doesn't open. You cannot have any contact with them, but everybody's got an agent. Everybody has high school coaches. Everybody has all these avenues to line these things up. So we're going to stick to the rules and play by the rules, but you're crazy to not think you got to get ahead.
Yeah. I'm going to say this because if you're a kid that's under the age, or if you're an adult that's under the age of 35 and you've tried to apply for a job through wherever, Indeed, LinkedIn, however, and you send a resume into the abyss and you never know if anybody's going to see it or not, right? The best way to get a job and the best way to learn about somebody is to talk to the other coaches or people that know that person, right? And have that relationship where you trust what they say is real and they're not just blowing smoke at you. So I think when I look at, obviously, your relationships across the world of college football and your staff's relationships, those are the things that matter, I think, more so than a lot of other things.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I'll ask of Power 4 dropdowns is, why are you leaving?
Yeah.
And then I got to get in contact with the coach. Like, are you pushing him out?
Is he telling me the truth? Or,
are you pushing him out? Or does he truly need to drop down to play? Is he you telling me he's a good kid? Is he really, what kind of went on there? Then you get into, what does his transcript look like? Oh, he's a great kid, but he's got 2-1. Now listen, that happens sometimes. People struggle.
I was a 2-1.
But was he using all the resources? Did he have tutors? Did he have all the things? Because everyone's different. Everyone struggles. People have learning disabilities and stuff like that. I'm not worried about that. But also change. What do you put into it?
Inspires people sometimes to 100%. Say, okay, maybe I need to be better.
That's what's inspiring me right now. To be all honesty, like that, and that's the challenge. Like I love, like I said, I know what this place can be when it's all relative, and now relative in the MAC. That's what I'm excited about. And I just think building it the right way for sustained success, not a one-year runoff, not because that'll make you feel good for a while and then you'll have to take a step back. So there's a building block to get a program to where it needs to be. And my situation and doing the research that I've done, it is on me that I believe the best way to do that is to build from the ground up and gut it and just completely dig it out, reset it, put new soil in, and start planting the right seeds. Will that be right or not? We'll find out.
Stay tuned.
We'll find out. Yeah, we will find out. And I know, but anytime you're in a position of leadership, you got to identify what you believe is right and keep pushing forward and not panic, because that's where I think I've been around it. A lot of people get in trouble. They panic because it doesn't happen, but there's only a certain amount of things that can be built in a certain amount of time, right? So, but that's the philosophy that we're going to have, and we started to show that with our early signing day here and what we're going to do. And now it's about retention on the roster. I mentioned to you before the show, I believe right now, as of right now, we'll, barring anything else that goes on, we have 13 scholarship players from the 2024 football team, which is astonishing. I didn't want it to be like that, but you make decisions to push forward, and that's what we believe we have done.
Last question that is on everybody's minds. Where can we get one of those darn hoodies that you're wearing, man?
So I already talked to our guys. I think I need to start selling these myself. Put it together with my cans. But yeah, these hoodies, they did a great job. These are every single person has hit me up. So yeah, we got to figure out a way to do that.
I'm a large, by the way.
Maybe I can. You have some connections. Maybe I can set something up where we can just mass produce these and we could, give it back to a good cause or something like that, because that would be great. I mean, yeah, these are awesome. I'm all about the black. I think the black goes great. I know we're maroon and white.
We wear those black unis every once in a while.
Black unis, but I think the black clashes with a lot. It's good. So, but yeah, these are outstanding.
The Dark Knight's coming. Joe Harasymiak. It's
coming.
Coach, thanks so much. Congrats on the signing day, and we'll talk to you down the line, all right?
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
All right, he is head coach Joe Harasymiak. See you next time.